Ladies and gentlemen, this is a bit loud. Let me see. Can you all hear me without the microphone? Yes. I think I'm going to not use it. I'll do it again. You think it's better? Yes. You prefer? Yes. Well, some people said yes, so. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the opening event of the Belgian chapter of the Hellenic Institute of Cultural Diplomacy. We have a two-part event for you tonight, whose theme is Subverting Stereotypes, a Modern Vision of Greek Culture. My name is HICDB. I will be your host for the evening, and as you can see around me, I have a panel of distinguished guests. You will hear more from them in a moment, but before we go any further, I would like to invite Marianne Narazaki, the president of the HICDB, to tell us a little bit more about the Belgian chapter.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the opening event of the Hellenic Institute of Cultural Diplomacy in Belgium. I will be quick, just to mention a couple of words about us, what we do. We were founded in November 2020. We are one of the 15 branches of HICDB globally. Our mission is to develop and deliver activities that aim to serve and advance Hellenic culture, to contribute to the image and redefinition of the contemporary Hellenic culture, and to create synergies with other cultural institutions. That is also the main reason why we chose this topic for tonight. I would like to thank His Excellency, the Ambassador of Greece in Belgium, Mr. Dionysios Kalambrezos, for his support. Our speakers, Professor Lohom Likata, Alexandros Nankianidis, Nino Apostolidis, Mario Papandreou, and Vicky Corbils. Our sponsors, Nina Handmade Chocolates, Inogia, and Codespina. The HICDB team, Kelly Agathos, Theodora Mazleropoulou, Thomas Kardakaris, Christos Gakoudis, Kostas Dzitros, our ambassador Ekaterini Levka, and our trainees. And before giving the floor back to Kelly, just to say that if you wish to connect with us, you can directly send us a message to contact at HICDB.be. And voila, enjoy. I give the floor back to Kelly. Thank you for coming again.
Ambassador Kalambrezos could not be with us this evening, but we do have a representative who's going to say a few words on his behalf.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. On behalf of His Excellency Mr. Dionysios Kalambrezos, Ambassador of Greece in Belgium, we would like to welcome you to the premises of the Greek Embassy. Unfortunately, the Ambassador had to attend another event in Antwerp. However, he would like to wish you good luck and all the best for your event. Thank you very much.
Now, as you heard from Maria, the mission statement of the HICD in Belgium is to promote a vision of modern Greek culture. And that is why we chose the theme of subverting stereotypes for this evening, because we all probably have associations, some positive, some negative, when we think of the word Greece. And the theme of tonight is to challenge those, to discuss those, and to hear from our illustrious panel in some of the ways that they themselves have tackled them. You will hear from a painter, an artisan chocolatier, and a pianist. And before we talk together about how we're subverting stereotypes and what we think of when we think of Greek stereotypes, I would like to give the floor to Professor Lohom Likata. He is a professor at the ULB on intercultural psychology, and he's going to talk to us about stereotypes as a social matter.
you must know. It's a great thing. Social psychology is a discipline that lies at the interplay between psychology, individual psychology, and let's say sociology. So crossroads between social dynamics and individual psychology, cognitive dynamics, and so on. And stereotypes is just a part of this field, but still it's a large field. It fills libraries. So I'm going to try to stress some aspects of the phenomenon, and we'll see, we can discuss that later on. So first, the definition. Just one of the definitions. A stereotype can be defined as a generalized belief about a particular category of people, which means that the stereotypes are shared representation that members of a social category have about members of another social category. You also have self-stereotypes, which is a self-definition of the social category. So, stereotypes are about cognition. They are ideas, representations. It's called cognition at the beginning, but it's linked with attitudes. So it can be prejudice, which is a negative attitude that we can have towards a group of people based on beliefs about those people. And this prejudice can be linked to discrimination, which is treating people differently as a function of their social category, usually negative kind of behavior. Okay, so stereotypes are social psychological phenomena because they have psychological functions, but also social functions. Let's say that their psychological functions, we can say that stereotypes are cognitive shortcuts. They help us to save some energy, so to save some attention, to save some time, and to adapt very fast to social situations. We use those shortcuts to avoid having to judge every single individual we meet and having the impression that we know how to behave towards individuals because we categorize them. And it's kind of, it's an automatic phenomenon, and we cannot avoid it. That's bad news. The good news is that the content of the stereotypes are not fixed, which means that you can have different kinds of beliefs about the social groups, and you can work on that. That's good news. You have also social functions of stereotypes. You can use stereotypes to explain social situations. For example, social inequalities. You can say, for example, people are unemployed because they are lazy. It's a psychological trait. You ascribe it to individuals, members of a category, and that will help you explain and justify the situation of those people. Usually it's a cause kind of thing. It can be used to justify behaviors towards another group, to legitimize actions, sometimes negative actions towards this group. We can say we mistreated those people, but it was legitimate because they are immoral people. We are in wars, even in current wars. And also positive differentiation. If you believe that the others are inferior to you, have negative traits, you can ascribe positive traits to yourself, which means that you create a positive identity by contrast to another category, which is a nice way of self-posting. We do that with the groups. Okay, so that's the general framework. What I'm going to do is to focus on the contents, because I told you that it was perhaps sometimes possible to change them. So, about the contents, and when I received the invitation, I thought, stereotypes about the good people, probably there are stereotypes about good people because it's a social category. In Belgium, there are to my knowledge, no research really addressing that. I didn't find it easy, right? Because it's not the most stigmatized category, it's a good news also. In this country, there are other categories that are much more stigmatized. Continue. Let's see. But I can, address this question of content stereotypes, including about breeds, with general theories about, the contents of stereotypes. First, there is something that we call north-south stereotypes hypothesis. North-south stereotype hypothesis. And it's the idea that there are stereotypical traits that are different for people of the north and people of the south. And it happens, it has been studied in a single country. And most of the time it works like that, not always. In this country it works like that at the moment, and I will come back to that later. And to the south of the country. And usually, and it works also at the European level, and it works even at the global level. At least in the North Hemisphere. When you come to the South Hemisphere, it reverses most of the time. So what are the stereotypes? The stereotypes are that people in the North are quite cold, they are quite distant, they don't touch each other and so on. They are more individualistic and so on, but they are also more organized, more organized. So we have, and people in the South, they are warmer, but they are also less organized, less performant. I'm Sicilian, I can tell you that. I see a kind of stereotype, but I'm from the other Sicilian. So we have this kind of stereotypes, and I guess in Europe I know it works like that. There are several studies showing that it works. It works with other stereotypes, but also with self-stereotypes. And it correlates also with realistic cultural traits. When you measure also the way people behave, the beliefs, the values, and so on, of the warm dimension, not of the efficiency dimension. Okay, so you have this kind of thing that can be, perhaps, can feed our discussions if you want. And perhaps for talking to, because here we are in another country, according to some social psychologists, stereotypes also influence on the way people from the diasporas, the immigration are judged. And it's quite easy to understand because people don't know about their groups, most of the people don't know deeply about that, they don't have the attention, interest to do that, and so they make inferences, broad inferences. And if you know that someone comes from a country that is in the south, and if in addition this country is rather poor, in contrast with the country of settlement, and then you make some assumptions regarding this group. And so you apply the global stereotype to the immigrant, even though you don't know the people. Okay? That's one of the things that could be interesting. But perhaps the next approach might also explain this first phenomenon, and perhaps it's a bit more dynamic. But that's quite static, to think that people in the north will always be judged as more dynamic and cool and so on. And another theory is saying that basically give me the social situation of a group, and I will tell you which stereotype is applied to it. So the question is not the geography, or rather the kind of relation that one group has with another group. On mostly two kinds of dimensions. The status, which is the socio-economic status. Is this group higher or lower than my group on this scale? And the second dimension is the kind of interdependence. So is it a group with whom we collaborate? Or is it a group with whom we are in competition? Or even in conflict? And if you cross those two dimensions, according to this kind of theory, you can predict the kind of stereotype that is going to be applied to you. So, and on two dimensions, which we call the big two of social judgments, which are, I already told you about the cold versus warm dimension, and the competent versus incompetent dimension, basically. So if the group is superior to yours in socioeconomic status and your cooperation with this group, it's a friendly group, it's called the stereotype of admiration. You admire those people, they are warm, not only they are warm, but in addition they are competent. But you can have a group with a superior status to yours, but you are in competition with this group. Then you recognize the competence because you have no choice. But you deny the world. They can be competent, but are cold. Or, they are isolated, they don't have fun, and you really have a social life. We can make fun, we can indulge different. But you also have, imagine a group with an inferior status, or represented as such, with a cooperative relationship. That's what we call paternalistic kind of stereotype. People are judged as warm, but incompetent. Okay? As for example, sexist kind of stereotypes are very, sexist men, they love women and so on, they cherish the weak with women and so on, but they deny their competence. Stay at home and so on. Also the colonial kind of stereotypes are paternalistic. You say, we love them, we take care of them and so on. We maintain them subordinated and subverted condition. And then you have the last one, which is rather worse. It's the content kind of stereotype. They are cold and they are incompetent, with no quality. That's for groups that we judge inferior and with whom we perceive competition. Okay, so that way, this group, this model can be applied to international relations. For example, in Europe, for the recent history, the relationship between the south of Europe, especially your country and the north of Europe, some intransigence of some countries towards yours, and then you can of the kind of stereotypes that are probably pre-existed, that became strong during the crisis, European crisis in 2008. Okay, so just moving on, but this kind of theory that I just outlined here is based on the present time. It's now. The kind of relationship we have at the moment depending on the kind of relation we have at the moment. Which leads to the idea that stereotypes change. Because if the status changes, or if the kind of relation changes, then the content of the stereotype might also change. For example, in Belgium, the Flemish Walloon kind of relationships changed a lot. In the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, then those were poor, and Wallonia was one of the richest regions in Europe, but then it changed. In 1965, I think, the two levels crossed, and then Wallonia went down, and Flanders went up. And if you look at the stereotype that Walloon led towards the Flemings at the beginning of the 20th century, for example, it's extremely contentious. And then it changed. The situation changed. Okay, but what I want to say also is that this kind of theories neglect perhaps time dimension and history. And history is also important. And we have stereotypical repertoire that pre-exist and that can still be mobilized. And stereotypes are also linked to collective memories. Collective memories are the way members of a group construct and represent the past of the group and the past of the relations between the groups and other groups. And that could also be used. You can think about the present, but you can also think about the past. Usually what group members do is that they focus on governments also. They focus on the nice parts of history, prestigious past. Sometimes they also compare this prestigious part with the less prestigious past of other groups. We were building temples, but you were still building caves. Okay, so the situation was a little bit different. So it's a way also to change the stereotype, but it's tricky because that's when you make the continuity between the past and the present, and it can be done, that you can also contrast it. You can also say, oh, there was a glory in the past, but look at where we are now, or we can do that for another group too. Yeah, you were pride in the past, but look at you now. So the past can be a good resource to build positive identity, contrast to other ones and so on, but not all good. And I guess that's what I understood. The aim of this kind of film is that perhaps to think about self-image of the group, and to think about different ways of seeing yourself and being seen by others, which is depends also on the way you present it. And to get rid of those old and static north-south stereotypes, and perhaps to reinvent the kind of relationship between the present and the past, which I think become precious resources as one of the greatest civilizations. And perhaps you can end up stay stuck with that, and we have to reinvent the identity, because I like the title Subverting Stereotypes, and stress the modernity, but I guess this is what we want to do. that's in the that's what I want to say.
Let's meet our panel. As I said, we have three Greeks living in Belgium who do not have the typical career one might associate with a Greek living abroad. I'm going to start on my right. We have HICDB, a concert pianist. Yes, please give it up. I'm going to let you tell us a little more about yourself, and then we will meet the rest of our panelists.
Well, just very shortly, I'm Alexandros, or Alex, I choose. I came to Belgium like 2009 to do master studies. I think it's my seventh year. I did advanced studies, and then I'm currently piano teacher at the Belgium Conservatory in the Academy of Zilligan in East Flanders, in the freelance concert pianist. Just that for now.
Next we have our artist at Chocolatier, Mina Kostolides. Mina, tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
I will follow Alex. So I just want to tell you that I've been here in Belgium for the last 10 years. And I suppose I broke stereotypes as I studied something else and I worked in the field of communications in the States. And then when I was 38, I changed careers and I lost myself into the magical world of chocolate.
Here we have Maria Papandreou, a painter. Maria, tell us a little bit more about yourself as well.
Well, I'm Maria. I'm 48. I'm Belgian. Yes, I'm 48. I'm in Belgium since 1996, so it's been 26 years already. I used to be a graphic designer. I was working here in Brussels for about 10 or 12 years in the advertising. And at 36, I became a preschool teacher. And so I worked as a teacher, as a preschool teacher, and as a painter, because if I don't paint, I'm gonna die. So that's all for now.
Thank you very much. And for completion, I will also say that I am a performer in improvised theater, but I used to work as a speechwriter in the EU institutions. And I think that what we share in common is that we all changed careers, I believe, or except you perhaps. And also that you talked about self-image, Professor Ligada, and I think that's very interesting too, because we also can claim a association and be proud of an association. I believe that the status game is also very interesting because there's a different connotation to the word expat, which is one that perhaps we would say about ourselves, and the word immigrant, which is perhaps a label that one would apply to the Greeks coming to Belgium in the 1950s and 60s to work in the coal mines, for example. And there's also the expectations that generations put upon us. My path was supposed to be a diplomat, and it was one that I decided to break. But my family would have wanted that for me. So the first thing I want to ask is, to tell us a little more about perhaps what was, for those of you who had a certain path, what was your path and what led you to break it, and what your culture played in that role or not. In your case, I think actually, maybe I'll start with you because you're the odd one out, how you ended up where you ended up.
Well, for me, the path was much clearer from the beginning. I got my piano lessons at a very young age. I went on with all the musical education in Greece, conservatory, university, did my bachelor's there. Well, I got influenced very much by participating in summer camps around Europe, always concerning music performance. And what played for me the most important role, I would say, is the support of my family. Because arts in general is it's a field that it's not so, I would say, easy to succeed. And you need very much discipline, patience, and much devotion to go further. Well, I cannot say that about myself, but I can truly say that my parents and my people around me helped me a lot and believed in me so that I could go to Belgium to study further and do what I've done up till now.
I would like to go on with Mina and ask you also if your career change came as a product of being here or something that started in Greece, because I think that that's also interesting, like how much are we influenced by home versus abroad?
Actually, I changed careers when I was 38, after 15 years in communication, and that was in Greece.
Mm-hmm.
After 3 kids, in between living in Dubai for 2 years and a serious car accident, and the push from a very good friend of mine, like a brother, Italian, with whom I used to work in communications when he tried my chocolate, because I've already made chocolate. He said, "This is a God's gift and you have to do it." And it was the push that I needed. And then I lost myself into chocolate, and that was in Greece, 2008. I came to Belgium to change, it was a new chapter in my life, personal. Is there the personal? And professional as well. I came with my 3 kids, and I immersed myself more seriously into chocolate making. Nowadays, I have my atelier in Roxanne and my main boutique in Excel. My chocolates are different, so I'm like breaking the stereotype, because there are recipes inspired by the Mediterranean and mainly by Greece, and we work using a variety of products. I'm pairing wines and other type of foods with my chocolates. And as I am a self-taught mainly in chocolate making, my chocolates are different. And that's why I also have a public and I'm waiting for this.
And you will all get to taste them in a little bit.
Yes,
we'll talk about part 2 in a second. I just want to stay a little bit and ask also whether what the reaction was, because you started in Greece, right? Where it's not very typical.
No, it is not. And the reason I lost myself into chocolate making and not patisserie in general is because all the people in Thessaloniki, the city I'm coming from in the north, all the known pâtissiers were friends of mine, and I thought it was not correct getting to repeat as I was self-taught. So I said, okay, chocolates with the chocolates, I'll do that. That's how it started.
And that's how the competition and status game was kept in balance as well, perhaps. And Maria, I'd like to ask you the same thing. So how and when did this change happen, and was it an influence that was from living here, for example, or not?
Well, my professional change was from advertising to preschool teacher. So I was 36. Here in Belgium, I think it's relatively common. You can change. I think that if I was living in Greece, I would never dare to do something like that. So,
And why?
because you have to pass from the Panhellenic exams, and here it's not the case. It's easier. It's easier. You can do really whatever you want. I think it's easier. So when I was 36, I decided that advertising was finished for me. For several reasons. I think that advertising is a communication. I mean, about communication. I think it's super, it's interesting, but once you pass the line of 35, 36 is where you work and you don't have family, or whether you have family and you cannot stay there. That was my opinion, that was what I saw. So I started to think that I wanted to see my kids a little bit more, because I was going back home and I had to go in the night, in the evening. And so I wanted to work art. I had a diploma from an art school, so I wanted to work with art, and I wanted to work with kids. Because I really do believe that art is the best way to develop the self-esteem. I think there's no better way than that. I mean, it's something you do with your own hands. Nobody can take it away from you. You did it. So I think kids really do need that a lot. Some kids more than others. So that's what made me decide to start studies again and become a preschool teacher, so that I can draw, paint, and work with kids at the same time.
And I'd like to direct your attention to some of her paintings, which are right over there.
My fat girls. Happy fat girls.
Happy. Oh, another stereotype we're subverting. Excellent. And I agree with you. I do believe that art is wonderful for children's self-esteem, and I would put theater in there as well.
Yeah. Art, music, painting, anything, crafts, art. Chocolate, art. Whatever is coming and
Music.
yes, anything that is made.
So I'd like to ask you all, we heard about the perception of self, the perception of others, the idea of a social group, putting an identity on another social group. We know about it, I know that we are talking about modern Greece, but this is something that I think the Parthenon is a very good example of, because the friezes of the Parthenon had the Greeks being heroes, and they were defining themselves as what they thought they were versus who they were not. The enemies and the monsters and everything that was depicted around them were ugly or big-nosed, and the Greeks were beautiful and muscly, and it was us versus them. Everything we are, everything that the other is not. And sometimes the other, I think, is also, just because we don't know it so well, it can also be a source of fear, curiosity, but also fear. Because we fear what we don't know due to the fact that our caveman brain, our lizard brain, is always set on vigilance. So in certain cases, it's not even a cognitive bias, and Laurent, feel free to butt in if I'm saying something that is not correct. But in some cases, it's not even something malicious. It's something that truly comes from a suspicion that is linked to our instinct for survival. Is this something you see in your work on stereotypes?
I'm not working on that directly myself, but yes, one of the source of prejudice and also negative stereotypes is threat. Threat and you say, the vigilance we have. And the first thing when we go and we meet some person or some situation that we don't know, the first thing is fear. And then we use our culture to change and to transform the perception of the thing, to link it, to anchor it to what we think we know, and then we judge the person based on this kind of interpretation that is rooted in the culture that was already present, and that's what the Greek did. The Greek did Herodotus and so on, imagining creatures and thinking that people in different countries were monsters, as you say, people with just one eye or food.
So I'd like us to talk a little bit about our experience as Greeks living abroad in these fields that are not as typical as we might think, or from your earlier days. I'd like to hear if you have a story of a time when you were met with a strong stereotype, negative or positive, because we heard that they can be either, and to tell us a little bit about that experience. I'm going to start with you.
There's been many times in my life that I'm faced with stereotyping, either positive or negative, but I'm going to share something that I thought it was totally stereotyped and funny. When I was studying in the States, we had at the dorm, we had a toga party at night. So we were like sitting in the dining hall talking about what we're going to wear, and I said to the group of people I was with, I need to find white sheet because all they are like striped and with colors. So what I'm gonna wear? And one of the girls in the group was like, "Come on, you have so many. Your clothes are like this." I was like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "But this is what you're wearing, no?" It's like, "No, this is not what we're wearing." This was like ancient times. She was so surprised. She thought that as the Arabs were wearing abayas, we were also wearing the same type of clothes, togas. And this, if I may say, it has to do, going back to what we just said, it has to do with lack of knowledge. Because I mean, the fear also is many times lack of knowledge. Did we know that it's different? Yeah, so that was my story.
Thank you. Yes, let's go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, like, since the breakout of the crisis in Greece around 2010, of course, a lot of stereotypes emerged, like Greeks don't work enough or Greeks are lazy. So actually, I was just here that year, and when I actually applied for my first job as a piano tutor, I faced a big suspicion, but I couldn't say much that it was really a stereotype, because it's absolutely normal, you know, people don't trust it. But I can share a positive experience, or an experience that turned to be a positive stereotype, in other words, where you know, they couldn't believe, I mean, at least in my field, that, you know, pianists from Greece can stand on that competitive level. Which is actually, I can justify it very well, considering that Greece didn't get through the Renaissance, I mean, 4 centuries ago. And actually, we didn't have classical music, we didn't have Western music. And, you know, people are still wondering how these people can understand and feel the same rhythm or the same music. We are very good with the traditional music, but are we good enough with Bach as well? That's, of course, depends on the way you are trained, and this is a stereotype, I can truly say. And another way can be justified by the fact that, you know, Greece, unfortunately, it doesn't support very much financially or in general the Greek artists, musicians, painters, etc. So that's, in a way, for me, it worked positively. That's what I would say.
Okay, yes.
I was married with a Belgian from the beginning and for 18 years, so I've always been between Belgians. I've never had Greek friends. I live outside Brussels on the countryside, so I've never had Greek friends around me. And stereotypes about Greece, I think I've heard thousands. Thousands. I don't know. In the beginning, when I came here, I was 22. I think that everybody was telling me, and I've never had that before. It wasn't in my panel of stereotypes. Everybody used to tell me that Greeks are homosexuals. Yes, all the time. It was the first time in my life. I could hear that. They explained that it's coming from the ancient time, but I don't know. I spent years and years saying no, not as far as I know. Then they used to tell me that they've never been in Greece, but they've been in Crete, for example. A lot of times, thousands of times. Geography I left everywhere. Crete is in Greece, no yes, no yes. The other thing was, nobody believed me when I said that there's whiskey in Greece. You don't ski, yes we do. We don't have snow, yes we do. You don't live in small, wide houses nearby the sea, no. We don't, not everybody. That was a big surprise also. I think that, yeah, and so on. I try to remember a lot. I tried to make a list yesterday. And my son is 17. He's laughing a lot. He told me something. I was a bit surprised, but he says it's between friends, so it's just for fun. But he's half Belgian, half Greek. His best friends call him the pool. He's the pool. Yeah, because he's Greek. Yeah, the pool, yes. Yes, how you doing the pool? And he told me he's laughing, but I didn't know if I had to laugh or not. Well, anyway, if he's laughing, it's enough for me, but it's a stereotype also since the crisis. Or the hairy one, Chewbacca also, because you're Mediterranean, so you have more hair than yes, Chewbacca also. So, well, he's laughing with all these things, but yeah, that's our life. Outside Brussels, anyway. So, well.
Did they say Italy and Sicily as well for you, or did you say Sicily?
Actually, I say from Italy and even Sicily.
Yeah. The Sicilians make that distinction, I think. And like Maria's son, you are half and half. You're half Belgian and half Italian. How do people relate to you? Do they stick one depending, or do you take advantage of it to present yourself in a certain way?
Do I lose Sicily? So, but is recognized in my Sicilianity. It's mind you, I'm Sicilian.
Same, I had an Italian boyfriend who I would go on holiday with, and because I'm very pale and he's more Mediterranean looking, they would talk to him in Greek always and me in English. So even in my own country, I was not recognized as Greek.
Your appearance is important, the way you are categorized.
Yeah, in the moment. And it makes me laugh that you told us the homosexual thing, because I used to do tours, interview tours, and we would talk about, Erastis and Eromenos and what used to go on in ancient Greece. And at one point we had a bus driver, I was saying this in the bus, that was very offended. And that told me in Greek that what you're saying is a lie, and it is a crime, and it is a sin. And I asked him at one point, because I thought it was very interesting that the Greek himself was so vehemently denying our history. And I asked him, but there are pots. There's evidence of this. Like, what do you mean it's a lie? And he said, no, the foreigners put them there to create this lie. Yeah, I've never heard something like that. It was next level, yeah. So it's funny because we ourselves can create, we can reject, the parts of our history that we don't want to maybe highlight. When I say we, I'm talking about certain people. people, but and also to highlight what we want to highlight. And I think that what's interesting is the malleability of stereotypes, because the crisis did, I think, create a stronger tie to certain negative stereotypes that existed before, but it wasn't like the first thing you associated with Greece. And what a Google search would come up with would not probably be so closely linked to taxes and finances and the crisis. So I want to ask anyone from the panel who wants to answer this, to what extent do you believe that stereotypes are malleable, and do you feel like in the work that you do, you've managed to subvert a stereotype about Greece in a positive or negative way? I don't know, maybe you made it worse.
When I first came to Greece, to Belgium, excuse me, from Greece, and they were asking me, so what are you doing? I said, I'm making chocolates. They thought I was crazy. I mean, I could feel it. I knew that what I was proposing was different and it was of good quality, so I had faith. And fortunately, with my products, and then again with our attitude, we can change the stereotypes. That's what it is. We can solve it.
I feel more or less the same. I feel that Belgium provides a nice environment. So actually, I feel very well in my professional community. They embrace me very well. I get equal chances to perform, to teach, to show my art. And after all, is you're gonna be judged at the moment. And since you can do that, there is nothing nobody can say. Either it has to do with chocolates, or we can see the paint here. Either I play the music and they like it, or they don't. Which I find good. I mean, it's honest, it's direct.
I have to say that I've always been warmly welcome here. I've never had, I don't have bad memories about being Greek. I had to prove something more around Belgium one, and it has been easy, really, and I think in my experience, Belgians love Greece. I mean, yes, I mean, they've been green, many times, 1,000 times, of course, but they always talk about it. I mean, I met someone, when I was in the advertising company, that was I think, the most surprising thing I've lived. There was a colleague who came one day and tell me, you are Greek, I love Greece. I said, yes, okay, yes, I know about stereotypes. And she told me, no, I really do love Greece. I've named my 2 kids with Greek names, Panis and Ariana, and I speak Greek. And she started to speak to me in Greek, really Greek, I mean, with no accent. And I was surprised. And then, we became friends. And she is Flemish, with a Flemish husband. And one day I was reading a book, it was a break, so I was reading a book, a Greek book, and she came here, she was sitting up behind me, and she started to read what I was reading. So she was able to read in Greek. And I said to myself, yeah, okay, it's just decoding, but decoding something, but I'm not sure she understood what she's reading, but she did. I mean, there was I was really surprised to see that she really loved Greece. And in my experience until now, 26 years, I've always met people who loved Greece, and they always welcome. I was welcome. I've never had problems really.
I want to come back to you because we talked about the different types of stereotypes, the way they allow you to make a perception on you, and we talked about the survival aspect of it a little bit. So I wanted to ask, can it be a good thing? Can Can it be something that a nation uses to its advantage? Have you had, it doesn't have to be about Greece, like is there an example of a nation that takes advantage of their stereotypes?
First of all, you cannot avoid stereotypes,
Yeah.
so you have to live with
Yeah.
them. But you can also, utopian stereotypes. It's the way, utopian group representation is the way, when you have a project of change, you have to imagine the future. And to imagine the future, you have to represent it, and to share the representation and mobilize people to attain it. And when you do that, you also work with social representations and also some stereotypical aspects. Stereotypes are about individuals. What are the qualities that we want to be recognized or we want to acquire in the future? So it's a project, and for doing that, you also mobilize stereotypes to move the group in a direction that can be better. So stereotypes are not only conservatory factor or injustice. They are just part of the world, and can be mobilized in a bad way or positive way.
The one that comes to mind for me is the way the tourist industry uses the idea of Greek hospitality. Writing welcome home on billboards in the Athens airport. So that is one that really stands out for me, one that I think we're proud of and that we do use to our advantage.
But that's the warm dimension.
Yeah.
So the warm dimension is already present.
Yeah.
You might just want to work on the other one or the ones. So, yeah, I mean, stereotypes can be nice because they are the warm social media dimension and so on. But they can also maintain the negative superior position. So, I think the challenge is to maintain two dimensions positively. So that I think, and it doesn't change that. You can change it at the individual level. But people use all sorts of strategies to maintain the stereotypes. Because when a stereotype is part of a culture, it's important for people because it helps them making sense of the reality. And so if you challenge the stereotypes, they use strategies to avoid change. You have to know that. So you can be a brilliant individual challenging the stereotype, and they would say, oh, this one is not like the others. So it takes time, and it takes massive movement, and so always structural changes to change it. So it's pessimistic. But I think everyone's level can do a lot, but then you have also the weight of history, and it takes
We are here to subvert them, so we are putting our little brick today. So thank you for being a part of that, and thank you to all our panelists. We're about to go to part 2, but before that I'd like to ask if there's anyone from the public who would like to have a question on the subject, for Professor HICDB, for any of the panelists. Yeah?
You stereotypes speakers, so the way I'm going to speak about Greek lines, for example, is based on the question that I'm going to ask you about stereotypes. Do stereotypes live forever? Or do they change
Did everyone hear that?
after decades or millennia?
change it. As I give the Belgian example, for example, obviously they change. They change, it takes time, it takes generations, and so on. And for the while, the existing stereotypes can be exploited because all the nice aspects can be reminded. It changes.
Before we close part 1, I'd like to ask each of you if you have something you'd like to share about Greece, the idea of Greekness or being Greek that maybe is not as well known, that's not perhaps a stereotype. Anyone on the panel has one that they'd like to share?
I just want to point out one feature that is quite important, probably not the other nations are so much aware of. I mean, Greeks, especially when when we were doing our first professional paths in Greece, we got to face a lot of bureaucratical, complex things of the system, which is a very big obstacle. And that makes us be very patient. We train much our vigilance, and in other words, we are very, very flexible. We can adapt very easily, and that's a great feature I find it's fundamental to achieve. And probably that's why you can see around the world the Greeks are doing well, which is of course the stereotype, but it plays a role, because when you have a nice environment, you can much more develop, I find.
Good point.
I have a question.
Yes.
The Greek people have a stereotype of another nation that is mostly, so you have one nation that you all sort of agree on stereotype.
Yes? Which one?
When I came here, when I was 22, and I was coming here from Greece, and with secondary school behind me and some history lessons, I really thought that Turkish people are bad. They're bad, they do hate us, and they want to see us dead. I was shocked. I've never met a Turkish person before in my life. But I had history books that was saying that they do hate us and that they are bad. And every time in the news, it was the same thing. So it took me a lot of time to understand that no, we do fun. Yes, it exists and many more.
Yeah, I just think that it has to do with education. I mean, I might not stereotyping a certain nation, but other fellow Greeks might. For example, I think it has to do with open-mindedness and education.
One thing I feel I get a lot, I absorb a lot from Greece is that all the nations around us are out to get us. But one thing that I find very interesting is that in the Balkans, every other country in the Balkans thinks the same thing. So we all are paranoid about each other.
And I'm from the Balkans.
There we go. Is it true? Do you think we're out to get you? You see?
And we also think that we like, well, I'm from Serbia, but we have stereotypes of like, sort of very good friends.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think it's sort of pretty much true, right?
They are based on something. They are based on something.
Then we have also the similar one with Italians and also the same una razza.
Actually, I would like to ask a question for you, Professor. Connecting with your testimony and thinking of the audience, do you have a site on numbers? How many of the negative stereotypes of the prejudices would be based on personal experience? Do you have an idea about that? Or is it just the production of what others heard?
That's the question. But having proportion is difficult. But there are works like that, and because there are different approaches to it. Some say that there are pure psychological, social, psychological constructions out of reality and so on. But others say that there is a kernel of truth, and not even statistics. Saying that up to a certain distribution of a trait in a group, then it becomes a stereotype, and then you homogenize to the whole group. And probably it's based on the combination of the two, because everything can exist. You can have a stereotype, as you say, in a term before, but you have a stereotype obviously because culturally and because of the history and present situation. There are stereotypes circulating in Greece against each other. But you can also have differences based on experience and shared experience, and also overgeneralization of some personal experiences that can give rise to more general stereotypes too. So there are a lot of different situations. Personal experience is important.
Yes, but I was wondering if studies have been made and assume that there is different numbers on the balance between personal experience-based practices and
Yes,
the other
okay.
productions.
You can weigh different factors and see the time. I cannot answer you precisely.
How do you break the implicit bias? There's so many people that use it. Really, it's politically correct to say that to pronounce, to reflect stereotypes, right? But implicitly, inside you have bias, right? There's so many people who say I have absolutely no problems with gay people, and then when someone says that I'm gay, they're kind of like a bad. So, how do you break the implicit bias in society?
So there are ways, first of all, to measure the implicit bias that people are not even aware of. Implicit association, things like that. It's kind of complicated to explain. So it's a way to measure the association between negative traits and social categories with time responses, things like that. People can control. And there are trainings, against stereotypes and prejudice, and some of them have effects on explicit stereotypes, but still others have effects on implicit stereotypes. So, but the evidence is not that clear, because most of the training that work on implicit stereotypes are based on training the association. So associating a category with kind of content, positive or negative. And personally, I don't find it very realistic. You can train one individual at a time doing that. At a social level, counteracting implicit biases. It's raising awareness and encouraging people to control possible effects of implicit social stereotypes. I think that's what all we can do.
I would just like to add something to what you said. When people try to, political government tries to prepare its own citizens to attack others, usually they try to create with a certain propaganda negative stereotypes towards that group. So we have a very standard, for example, vocabulary that is dehumanizing. They use words to qualify them that are animals that could be dangerous or that could be horrible or that we wouldn't like. And they start attributing also to them reasons that it could make very plausible that we would attack them or that we would revenge or that we even completely demolish them in a very natural way. And so this is also a system of changing stereotypes but towards the worst. When we really want to manipulate that
Hatred is not that natural. Fear is, but going to hatred and violence against other people. If you want to do that massively, you have to train population. And to do that, you use propaganda and dehumanize, as you say, associating the person to animals, monsters, or whatever, negative entities. And it works repeatedly for years and years and educate people in this whole age of you can really dehumanize and lead them to commit violent acts or murder without even feeling morally responsible for it. Because we situate the person outside the moral community.
Big subject. It's a big discussion, and I think we could talk about it for ages. But I would like us to go to part two because the reception we have prepared for you two also is within the same theme. So I'd like to invite you to discuss with Laurent afterwards, to discuss with our panelists, but for now, thank you to Alexandros, Mina, Laurent, and Maria. Please give them a round of applause. Mina, why don't you stay here for a second? The rest of you can sit down. And I'd like to invite Vicky Cornelius. Part two is I love that it was a wine glass because Vicky, of course, is a sommelier. And she was voted Wine Lady of 2015. She's an expert in Greek wine. And of course, she has chosen the wines for tonight. And she's going to tell us a little bit about how, about twisting stereotypes through a pairing experience. Mina is also going to talk a little bit about what she has prepared for us tonight as well. I'm going to give you the microphone. You have the microphone there, and I'm going to hand over the floor.
Thank you, Katie. Is this working? Hi, Mina. Been a long time. Yeah, Mina and me, we know each other for 10 years, 15 years? I don't know.
No, not so much.
Not so much.
We've probably been here 10 years, but we have known each other like from the very beginning.
Okay. So, implicitly, I heard the professor solicit for some témoignages, how do you say that in English? Témoignages? Witnesses or histories about, or stories about Greek stereotypes in Belgium, because it has not been studied. Well, I can give you tons of it. Thank you so much for the Institute also to invite me, because I'm no Greek, I'm not Greek. My name is, may sound Greek, Vicky Alexandra, but I'm not Greek. So that's a stereotype broken right there. Yeah, I'm into the wine, and of course Greek wines are major, are really on top of the tendency of the Greek, of the wine culture nowadays. And when I asked the question about how long do stereotypes last, actually, I brought a book with me. Actually, it's The Wines of Greece, written by Miles Lambert-Gox. Have anybody heard of this man before? No, I didn't either before I started learning about Greek wines. And this is a book written in 1990, and it's you may not like what I'm about to read. This is literally what he writes, and it's about notes on gaining familiarity with Greek wine. It's a bit heavy, you know, his English style is a little bit heavy, but I hope you understand. I'm just going to read a little bit about it. Greece remains the most difficult of wine countries to become acquainted with, and its wines continue to confound enophiles. One would like to see a concerted effort on the part of the Greek industry, large firms, cooperatives, small private producers, to improve the situation, but they remain hamstrung by jealousies, mutual suspicions, and secretiveness that recall the ancients at their worst and inhibit action for the common good. In these circumstances, non-Greeks, like me, are left largely on their own, and how they fare is too often utterly a matter of chance, all of which may be in order according to the eternal Greek way of thinking, but not infrequently damaging for the reputation of Greek wine. It's not a flattering image, and it's partly what I experienced since 2014. Now it's true I became the Wine Lady of the Year in Belgium in 2015, the historically first wine lady, and it's been, I was already for 1 year, it had been 1 year that I first tasted a Greek wine, and I was completely overwhelmed by its uniqueness and its beauty and its tastiness. So I decided to look for information, to study it, to travel intensively to Greece and to talk to Greek winemakers, because I couldn't find the information that I was really looking for on websites or by making phone calls. So I tried to travel as much as possible. And I wrote a book about Greek wine roads.
because I thought it was really pertinent, it was really accurate, it was necessary. And so I wrote, the book was almost finished, and I started to go to publishers and editing houses, and there the reaction was, and here comes the first stereotype, from the other side, from the Belgian side. They said to me, well basically I contacted several of them, but the reaction was always the same. It was, well, who drinks Greek wines? It's only the Greek people. And I was really amazed by that answer, because I thought that publishing houses were much more avant-garde than that. But actually, it's the opposite. If you don't come, if your face is not on television, or you're not on Instagram, or you're not an influencer, no way you're gonna write a book. So my book stayed there in my laptop. First stereotype: who drinks Greek wines but the Greek. Now I can tell you it's not the truth, because I'm a wine teacher to adults who want to become a wine expert, so they say. And out of the, that's all these modules, all these courses of 16 weeks, and in 16 weeks we taste in about 100 wines. And I'm always making sure that 10% of those 100 wines is Greek wines, because I'm absolutely certain that a minority of the class has already tasted the Greek wines, so I'm sure that at least 10% drinks Greek wine, which is already a certainty, and most of them are really willing to look further into that specific character of Greek wines. They really like Greek wines. So that's a certainty. And what we wanted to do with this pairing, that's just the life experiences. What we wanted to do tonight with the pairing, we will have two different wines. It's a Retsina, of course, which is already prone to a lot of stereotypes itself, like it's a bad wine, it's only drank by Greeks in the diaspora, or it's only drank by tourists in Greece. It's absolutely not true. First one, it's not a bad wine. There's a lot of massive production, of course, of Retsina, which are not so good, and they can give you a headache. Same goes for rosés from the Provence. You can get a really bad headache drinking them too much. But this one is the best on the market. It's made out of the best Greek grape variety, which is Assyrtiko, grown not on the island of Santorini, but in the area of Thessaloniki, where Mina is from. So it's an Assyrtiko, and it's barrel aged. So these are terms that you do not relate to Retsina. This is an age-worthy Retsina, actually. It's wonderful. So we pair that, and maybe it's a time to already ask Mina where we're gonna drink this Retsina with.
Yes. So, first let me say that we are subverting the stereotypes, to use this phrase, also for chocolate. We think that chocolate is sweet, not necessarily. Cacao is really spiced, so it can spice up whatever we eat. I use it in my cuisine. So here we are going to pair the Retsina, Tobago de Pesco, with my spread a la Catalan, which is a dark chocolate spread with bio olive oil from Kalamata, fleur de sel from Mesolongi, and Greek honey, paired with sherba. This is one of the two that we're going to be pairing with the Retsina. And then, mutabal, if I say it correctly, with 100% of chocolate from Venezuela, pistachios from the island of Egina, and dried sour cherries from the valley close to Mount Olympus. So these are the two that are going to be pairing with the Retsina, and then I'll let you continue.
Thank you. Let me just ask Despina if she wants to get the first bottles of Retsina, because we're all thirsty. It's extremely warm here. Retsina is the best refreshing drink you can have. The second wine, because we will taste the second wine, it's a sweet wine from Crete, from Creta. Very typical Cretan wines, because most of the appellations in Greece actually still refer to sweet wines. This is something completely different from the rest of Europe, but Greece is really putting a lot of effort to emphasize the importance of their, the efforts, but also the uniqueness and the beauty of their sweet wines. And then I would like to mention a second stereotype. Some Belgians tend to think that Greek wines are expensive. Not if you look at the procedure of the fermentation and the aging of certain wines. The Liatico, that's the sweet wines that we're going to taste with, and the other delicious delicacies that you prepared, has actually aged for 10 years in barrels. Now, this is an enormous investment before you can gain your money as a winemaker, because you let your wine age in barrels for 10 years. It's enormous. You need space, you need the certainty that your wine can handle it. You need the certainty that nothing goes wrong because the investment is already made. So expensive is very relative, and I think that for Greek wines, there's no better price quality product than a Greek wine, absolutely. And the wine we will taste, it's in small bottles of 500 centiliter, not 75 centiliter, because because sweet wines, we usually don't drink them, as we would drink just dry wines. So this is 100% Liatico. The berries were harvested, were then put in the sun, on the ground, put in the sun and to dry for 7 days. Then the fermentation took place in stainless steel, and then the whole product went into wooden barrels for 10 years. So I tasted it. I had a pre-taste, as always. I'm very lucky in my job. But I think we're all going to be very lucky tasting the canapés that Mina made.
So the second part that we're going to pair with the sweet wine Ilios of the Factory's winery. There are two things. First, our traditional pastelli, which I'm preparing, we are preparing with Oruba, who's also like subverting the stereotype, a Syrian. And I'm grateful that she put it together. So, anyways, one is pastelli involved with dark chocolate of 70%. The pastelli, the sesame bar with slight salt. And the other one, which I actually prepared for the first time for here. So it's an, like international first. And I love your feedback. It's the dried figs from the Ebri Island that I'm using for my chocolates, macerated in this wine, and then stuffed with Roquefort. And like it's a cream, it's like Roquefort and like cream cheese, chocolate of 100%, and walnuts, with a touch of 85% of another chocolate and walnuts on the outside. So, because figs and cheese and chocolate very well. It's not very common, but they do very well. And so, we invite you.
Yes, I just wanted to mention as well, the way you taste wine and food. You take a sip first of your wine, then you take a bite of the food, and then you drink another sip of wine. So this is how you taste. Now, the wines are very complex, and the food will be very complex as well. So please take a minute. I don't want to hear anybody say a word. No, but this is really worth to be very grateful and to be really concentrated when you taste all definitely the it's not even chocolate. There's so many other elements made in what we're gonna eat. So just be very concentrated on what you will drink and eat, please. But this is just the way it's done. I hope there's enough glasses. There's enough wine. There's enough glasses because we have some in the kitchen. So I think we will start pouring. So maybe we should do it as a church. So the invitees first, and the panelists first, and then the first row and the second. So please be invited.